Right. Thank everybody for coming out to the living room. Today we're gonna. I've kind of gone over this before a couple of times. Um, I see it's been kind of creeping its way back into the community. Um, so it was just on my heart to discuss it, and it's basically Genesis 15, 13 to 16, familiar text, the covenant made with Abraham, Abaraham, it's how we say it in the Lashawan in the Hebrew, Abaraham, but it's the covenant made to Abaraham in Genesis 15, 13 to 16. Um, and like I said, I had spoken about it before, and you know, people are kind of everywhere with this. Um, a lot of people feel that it pertains to this captivity, right? Me personally, and like I said, in the living room, this is open discussion. It's not just me taking the helm or whatever the case may be. This is open discussion. It's interactive, things of that nature, whatever. And it's not me, dictating any doctrines or anything like that or whatever. This is just for straight learning purposes and one second, learning purposes, for edification. We don't go back and forth and and debating and all that. We don't do that because it doesn't amount to anything. It's not edifying. Um, you know, but we're here to learn. We're all in the same boat. We're all seeking the same things. I pray we all seeking the same things, which is being able to pass under that rod in the wilderness and eventually get into the kingdom, to dwell with the Most High. So that's where we are. But so when we discuss anything, that's what we're about. But anyway, some may know, some may not know. So this is why we're bringing it to the table. But again, Genesis 15, 13 to 16, covenant made the Most High to Abraham. It's also mentioned in Jubilees 14, 13 to 16 as well. Jubilees 14, 13 through 16 as well. Again, some people feel that it is speaking about this captivity, right? Uh, I tend, I tend to not, side with that. I tend to lean on the side that it speaks of, what took place in Canaan and Egypt, Canaan in Egypt. Um, so I personally don't subscribe to the whole, oh, this is, the captivity now, this and that or whatever. And what we're going to do is just going to read through scripts. We're going to be Bereans and we're going to read through the scripts and see what the scripts say and see where the scripts say it is. The reason why it comes up is because um, I well, some years back, I'm not going to mention any names, but some years back, we know of someone. Back in the day, I don't know if people here, a lot of us may be old enough to remember the whole Y2K thing, and people spoke about the world ending and things of that nature. Well, one of the camps in New York, one of the Hebrew Israelite camps in New York, I can't remember if it was GMS Millstone or if it was ISUPK or whatever. I can't remember which one, but I know it was one of those camps used to they had doctrine saying that the Most High was going to bring judgment upon the world and the world was going to end, whatever the case may be, in the year 2000. Okay, that was the doctrine that they were pushing, um, and of course, all of the followers in that camp believed it to the point where they were like, okay, I think it was like the year what 1988, I mean 1998, 1999, and you have brothers, that were maxing out credit cards, buying all types of expensive cars, and the whole you only live once mentality, whatever. Yeah, they're having multiple wives. That like they were just going haywire. They were going crazy, right? Right, exactly. So we knew someone who was in that and who was, whose family actually. and they were just going crazy because in their minds the Most High was coming up, and like I said, this is a Hebrew Israelite camp. In their minds, the Most High was coming Y2K to bring the judgment. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, right, right, exactly. But instead of getting them, but if that was the case, instead of getting themselves together, repenting and getting themselves right, they were out there getting all types of worldly things, this and that, whatever. Oh, you only want the world's about to end. Oh, blah 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 blah. We got to do this, that, and whatever. Doing all types of craziness. But anyway, and I'm saying all this to get to a point. But so Y2K, the year 2000 came, came and went. Boom, we still here, right? And so many of the brothers, this and that, whatever, got so upset that it didn't come to pass that they just started renouncing. Oh, I'm not a Hebrew Israelite anymore. Some went back to Christianity and all of this other stuff and walked away and this, that, whatever, and things got disbanded. It was just madness. It was madness, and I was able to speak to this brother, at one point, and when we first became awakened, and he was saying, "Oh, Myron, don't do it, da 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 da, because it's not real, it's not this, it's not that, and blah blah blah." And he started mentioning that whole thing, and I'm like, "Well, bro, I mean, you guys were listening to a man. The scripts doesn't mention anything that you say. Doesn't this text tells you that no man knows the day nor the hour when the Son of Man cometh, not even the angels?" So, I mean, you listen to a man tell you the world's going to end in the year 2000, and now you upset with the Most High, or you talking about you were announcing, now you want to renounce bloodline? It's bloodline, man. You can't just walk away from it. But anyway, so now I'm seeing the kind of like the same things almost like repeated now with the whole, covenant with Abraham, with the whole 400-year thing, because we've heard, and people have stated, oh, 1619 is when slavery started, so 2019 made it 400 years, da 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 da, boom, boom, boom. That cannot be further from the truth. First of all, captivity and slavery started way before 1619. I mean, you have Spanish Inquisition, you have, Arab slave trade, you have all of these things that's now that have taken place. You know what I mean? These captivities that have taken place. So we're way beyond, first of all, 400 years. And then again, there's basically two subjects of scrutiny within this thing as well, right? It's that whole 400 years thing, because you see, we see discrepancies, 400 years, and then you see 430 years and all of these things, right? So all of these things, and we're going to discuss all of this, all of these things are, subjects of scrutiny, the 400-year thing, and then, the generation. I had asked Danny to show, to give me something in the Hebrew lexicon, because I knew what the word generation was. My son and I, we've been kind of, looking into that word for a while. And, at one point we thought that it kind of meant, and it can also mean that as well, but it meant like from parent to child, or whatever the case may be. From parent to child is a generation, things of that nature, such and such. But it's more than that. It's more than that. And I had asked Danny to look in the lexicon to confirm things that my son and I were already looking into. So we're going to look into all that. But, enough of me talking. Let's dive into it. And again, we're just going to search the scripts, and we're going to see what Genesis 15, 13 to 16, and Jubilees 14, 13 to 16 is talking about. Is it talking about Egypt, the time in Egypt and Canaan, or is it talking about the captivity now, or no one has a clue what it's talking about? It's just something that's there and no one knows what it's talking about, which, I mean, you do have people that think, well, we don't know what it's talking about, so we're just going to leave it up to chance. You do have people that think that. So let's dive into it. So first thing is questioning the 400 years, Is it 210 years or 430-year enslavement, this and that, whatever. So I had some things stated down here. Jasher, the book of Jasher, chapter 81, verses 3 and 4. Matter of fact, let's just go ahead and read that. Jasher 81. Go in here. Boom, boom, boom. And if anybody has anything, just come off mic and say something, because a lot of times I'm not looking at the screen. One second here. I'm getting Jasher. What did I say? 81.
Yeah, 81, 3 to 4.
Jasher 81, right? Verses 3 to 4. And it reads, "And the sojourning of the children of Yasharal, who dwelt in the land of Egypt in hard labor, was 210 years. 4. And at the end of 210 years, Yah brought forth the children of Yasharal from Egypt with a strong hand." Okay? So we have that. So this was saying, so you know what? Actually, before we do that, let's read through Genesis 15, 13, 16 real quick. And then go from there. Genesis 15, 13 to 16. And again, Jubilees 14, 13 to 16 is pretty much saying the same thing. Genesis 15, 13 to 16. So, of course, I'll read out of the Septuagint. It says Genesis 15, 13 to 16. It reads, "And it was said to Abraham, You shall surely know that your seed shall be a sojourner in a land not their own, and they shall enslave them and afflict them and humble them 400 years. And the nation whomsoever they shall serve, I will judge. And after this, they shall come forth hither with much property. But you shall depart to your fathers in peace, nourished in a good old age. And in the fourth generation they shall return hither, for the sins of the Amorites are not yet filled up even until now." Okay. So that's where we are. And again, I just read Jasher 81. So again, we see it says, and the people shall be afflicted 400 years, right? So again, this is what happens. People get conflicted with that whole thing. Well, it says they will be conflicted 400 years, and we see 430 years here. We see 210 years here. So it can't be talking about Egypt, because that's all over the place. So it's got to be talking about America. But again, there's other things in here which let you know it can't be talking about America too. It talks about the Amorites, right? So, where does the Amorites fit into the equation now? But anyway, let's go forward. So Joshua 81, 3 and 4, we read that, and that states that Yasharal sojourned in Egypt for only 210 years. Okay? Sojourned in Egypt. Doesn't say anything about affliction or anything like that. It just states that Yasharal sojourned in Egypt for only 210 years. Right? Now we know that initially when Yasharal came into Egypt, they weren't slaves, right? We know that Joseph, being second in command, whatever, he brought over his family, Jacob, Jacob, and everybody, brought them over into Egypt, and Pharaoh entreated them, gave them land and the whole 9 yards over in Egypt. So we know they weren't afflicted, at that point, right? That came later when another Pharaoh rose up that didn't know Joseph. So we know they weren't afflicted for this, for the entire time. All right, Exodus 12, 40 and 41. Did I close this out? Exodus 12, 40 and 41. I thought oh, there we go.
I got it already.
You got it? You want to hit it?
Yeah. So this is Exodus chapter 12, 40 and 41 in the Septuagint. And the sojourning of the children of Yashar'al, while they sojourned in the land of Masraim, Egypt, and the land of Canaan, was 430 years. And it came to pass after the 430 years, all the fiercest forces of Yah came forth out of the land of Egypt by night.
Khan, appreciate you. So it says, and the sojourning of the children of Yashua while they sojourned in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan. Okay? So Egypt and Canaan was 430 years. Okay? And it came to pass after that whole sojourning, after that 430 years, all the forces of Yah came forth out of the land of Egypt by night. Okay? You gotta remember that whole land of Canaan, that's where Jacob was dwelling. That's the land that was promised to Abraham from the river Euphrates down to the river, to the Nile River. All that land, those are the borders, and all that land between the Most High had given to Abaraham. You know what I mean? So it was that whole sojourning within Canaan, and Egypt was 430 years, right? So, this is what I tell people. I said, look, our scrolls have passed through the hands of our enemies. You know what I mean? It's not the Most High or anything like that that's messed up. The discrepancies come through man. You know what I mean? There could be typos, it could be this, there could be that, this, now, whatever. It has nothing to do with the Most High, right? So, so it was the time in Egypt and Canaan combined that made up over 400 years. Over 400 years, and it says 430. Why is this doing this? Sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. My phone is just kind of tripping right now. Don't know why, but let's continue to go forward. All right. And Galatians, let's go to Galatians 3, 16 through 18. Galatians 3, 16 through 18. And again, some question that this is the current captivity. Some don't know. Like I said, it's just a question mark up in the air, and some, like myself, say Egypt. So Galatians 3, 16 through 18. And it reads out of ESV. Now the promises were made to Abraham and to his offspring. It does not say and to offsprings, referring to many, but referring to one, and to your offspring, who is Mashiach. Verse 17. This is what I mean, the law, which came 430 years afterward, does not annul a covenant previously ratified by the Most High so as to make the promise void. So it's showing you that it started at the time that the Most High made the promise to Abraham. That's when the whole 430 years started. It started then. It didn't start when Jacob and them came into Egypt. The 400 and something odd years started at the time of the promise and ended when they came out of Egypt. That's what it's showing us. So again, they weren't afflicted for the whole of 400 years or 430 years. No. Okay? So just like it was stated, they sojourned in Egypt for, was it 200? I think it was 210 years. Right? And within that time, they were afflicted. So there was time, so it started from the time of the covenant, of the promise made to Abraham. Then you had the whole migration into Egypt, with Jacob and everyone else, with Joseph bringing them in and Pharaoh entreating them, this and that, whatever. And then within that time, within Egypt, there rose up another Pharaoh that didn't know Joseph, and that's when they were afflicted. So they weren't afflicted the entire 400 and something years. Okay. And so again, those are subjects of scrutiny that we need to clear up. Okay, so I hope I explained that in a way that everyone can understand, right? We know that they were not inflicted the whole of 430 years or whatever. It was a time period within that time, but again, the 430 years started at the time of the promise made to Abraham, okay, and ended when they left Egypt. That's your 430 years right there, okay? All right. So now moving on to the next subject of scrutiny. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns concerning anything that just transpired? I don't know why this is doing this. All right. All right. If not, we will move on because we can get through this real quick. So the next subject of scrutiny is that word generation. Like again, at one point I thought it was just generation is. I've heard a few things actually. Oh, generation is 100 years, and or generation is 10 years. Generation is 100 years. Generation is 1,000 years, and there's so many. Like I said, family, there's so many things out there. If you don't do your due diligence, you will be tossed to and fro with every wind of doctrine. You will, straight up. Um, and then at one point, I was just stuck on generation is just from a parent to a child, right? But Hebraically, it means something different. So let me go here and see if I can share this real quick. You can see it? You can see it? Okay. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. Hmm? Well, we can't see it right there, but hopefully everyone can see the screen, right? So this is from the Hebrew lexicon. Tawada Rabah for my man Danny, uh, helping me out with this. So this is from the Hebrew lexicon. This is speaking on the word generation from that particular passage. Okay, Genesis 15:16. All right, and this is what it's saying. The ancient Paleo Hebrew word for generation that appears in Genesis 15:16 is dawar. Okay, dawar. The Hebrew word dawar derives from an unused root meaning to gyrate or move in a circle. This term primarily refers to a generation or an age, often used to denote a period of time associated with a particular group of people. So this is the study when my son and I were sitting down and we were kind of mulling this over about the whole generation thing, because it says in Genesis 15 in the fourth generation. What does it say again? Hold on, I want to read it exactly how it is. It says, verse 16, Genesis 15, and in the fourth generation they shall return hither, for the sins of the Amorites are not yet filled up. And in the fourth generation, so again, if you go by the whole parent to child thing, it was more than four generations that made it into the promised land. Way more. And then if for the ones that think it's America, we're way beyond four generations. If you're thinking of the parent and child thing, right? Way beyond. Because if you go back to Matthew, what's that? Matthew 1, I think, and 17, I believe it is, with speaking about Mashiach's genealogy. I think it covers from, I want to say from Adam, I think to, is it Adam? to Mashiach. I think it covers like 42 generations. I think it is. Let me see, just to be sure. Yeah, so verse 7, Matthew 1:17. So all the generations from Abraham to David were 14, from David to the deportation of Babylon, 14, and from the deportation of Babylon to Mashiach, 14. Okay, that's 42 generations. So if you're thinking about it from parent to child, right? 42. So way beyond that. But again, this denotes a period of time associated with a particular group of people. So just like with the Most High, that it says, one day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is to a day. We don't know what this period of time is, to say what this generation period is. We don't know what time passes to make up a generation in this context, right? It just says in the fourth generation, but we don't know what that actually is to the Most High. And I'm just reading to you from what it says, in this particular context. Okay, the term primarily refers to a generation or an age, often used to denote a period of time associated with a particular group of people. We know who that particular group of people is Yasharal, right? But it doesn't say anything about a parent to a child or whatever the case may be. It just says a period of time. So we don't know what that is. Okay, it just says fourth generations. We don't know what that is to the Most High, and that's it. All right. So any comments, questions, concerns, feedback?
You could take Second Esdras 6, and it says world in the KJV, but where it talks about Esau is the end of the world, this age,
Con.
and Jacob is the beginning of the age. So it's not defined by, to your point, by father to son or whatever that is. It is literal the age that Yah has prescribed
There you
to
go.
that generation and that people. And it's echoing exactly that, because it's talking about Esau being the end of the age and Jacob being the beginning of the one that follows.
Con. That's exactly it. And we don't know what that age is to the Most High. Just like, again, a day is 1,000 years, 1,000 years to a day. I mean, we don't know what that is. So we don't really know what that 4 generations is or what that truly means. But we know in this context, it has nothing to do with parent to a child. Right? We don't know. It's just like, when the text tells you that at the times of the end, now here it is, we know that Mashiach is coming with his angels to gather us from the 4 corners of the earth. But even Mashiach doesn't know when that is. It's just at some point, however the Most High parses time out, at some point there's a time where he's going to say, okay, this is the time to do it. Okay, so however he counted out those 4 generations, that's when our people were able to go back into the land of Canaan, right? After coming out of Egypt. They were already there initially. Again, it started in Canaan. We read that passage. Started in Canaan, ended up in Egypt, and then they were going to go back into Canaan. That's why when you read Joshua, I think it's Joshua, the Most High told Yasharal to wipe out all of the inhabitants of the land, because he was giving the land to them, because he had promised it to Abraham, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, their lineage, right? And in Joshua, he tells our people to go and cleanse the land and kill everybody. Just wipe them out. They don't serve me, this now, whatever. They doing all types of heinous stuff, this now. The land is for you. Cleanse it out. So that had to be the 4th generation in whatever parcel of time that the Most High sees. So that's that issue with generation. Any questions, comments, concerns, feedback? Appreciate that, Okay, again, we don't know when this age ends, and and the Esau time ends, and Jacob gets. We don't know when that is. We have no idea. We're just supposed to be readying ourselves and occupying until he comes. Right? So let's just read now. Let's just read through some scripts and see what this is. Is it speaking about the time in Egypt and Canaan, or is it speaking about America? Because a lot of people think it's America, whatever that this captivity, this covenant, this promise is talking about, or we just gonna be up in the air with it and say, oh, we don't know what it is. All right.
Hey, I might have missed it too, Marty. You said something about 210 years. Was that in Jubilees?
Jasher.
Oh, Joshua.
Yeah, Jasher 81, verses 3 and 4. And that's the one that states that Yasharal sojourned in Egypt for only 210 years. Yep. So we're gonna read through some scripts, and we're gonna parse this thing out. Where did I put my phone? Did I do my phone? You see? Oh. Forgive me, y'all. I'm kind of bugging today, but a little tired. So the first one is going to be Psalm 105. And we're going to see how this thing plays out. Psalm 105. Like I said, I'm not getting it from me or anybody else. We're going to read through the scripts. Like my man Chris always says, chapter and verse. Chapter and verse. Let's see where we stand. Chapter and verse. Psalm 105. It's a little lengthy, 23 to 45. Psalms 105, 23 to 45. We'll read through it quick, but we're going to see what this is talking about. And I'm going to say emphasis on verse 42. Emphasis on verse 42, but let's read through Psalm 105, 23 to 45. Starting verse 23. Yasharal also came into Egypt, and Yaquab, Jacob, sojourned in the land of Ham or Ham. I'm reading through the Septuagint, so things are spelled differently and things like that. Verse 24. And he increased his people greatly and made them stronger than their enemies. And he turned their heart to hate his people, to deal craftily with his servants. He sent forth Moses, his servant, and Aaron, whom he had chosen. He established among them his signs and his wonders in the land of Ham. Verse 28, he sent forth darkness and made it dark, yet they rebelled against his words. He turned their waters into blood and slew their fish. Okay, so we know what this is talking about, right? Talking about the plagues now in Egypt. Verse 30, their land produced frogs abundantly in the chambers of their kings. He spoke, and the dogfly came, and lice in all their coasts. He turned their rain into hail and sent flaming fire in their land. And he smote their vines and their fig trees and broke every tree of their coast. He spoke, and the locusts came, and caterpillars innumerable, and devoured all the grass in their land, and devoured the fruit of the ground. He smote also every firstborn of their land, the first fruits of all their labor. And he brought them out with silver and gold, and there was not a feeble one among their tribes. Egypt rejoiced at their departing, for the fear of them fell upon them. He spread out a cloud for a covering to them, and fire to give them light by night. They asked, and the quail came, and he satisfied them with the bread of Shemayim of heaven. He clave the rock, and the waters flowed. Rivers ran in dry places. Verse 42, for there's emphasis on verse 42, right? For he remembered his holy word, which he promised to who? To Abraham, his servant. So we just spoke about everything that took place in Egypt, right? The plagues and all of these things. And then it says, for he remembered his holy word, which he promised to Abraham, his servant.
Yeah, and I know when we hear that word remember, we automatically just think of it in our mind like y'all forgot. But really, that's just saying y'all did it. He actioned what he said he was gonna do.
Come on. Speak about it, Doc. Exactly right. He basically did what he said he was going to do. He told Abraham that he was going to do this, right? He said, the nation whom they shall serve, I'm going to judge. We just read the plagues that happened, right? And again, we didn't serve them for the whole of 400 years. We just went over that, right? The sojourning was 210 years, and within that time, they were afflicted, right? But he did judge them coming out. And we just read it was what he promised to Abraham. Oh man, this is crazy. For he remembered his holy word, which he promised to Abram, his servant, and he brought out his people with exultation and his chosen with joy. Verse 44, and gave them the lands of the heathen, okay? And they inherited the labors of the people that they might keep his ordinances and diligently seek his law. Right? He gave them the land of Canaan that, that the Most High had promised to Abraham. He gave them those lands because there were other people living in those lands. The Perizzites and all Jebusites and all these people that are mentioned, he gave them the lands. Again, he told when they went to the land, the Most High told them to wipe them out. The land is yours. Wipe them all out so that the land could be yours. And of course, we didn't listen, but again, this was a promise. That was the promise made to Abraham. He did what he said he was going to do, and he's saying he remembered his holy word, the covenant that he made. All right.
Yeah, what scripture was that again?
That's Psalms 105, 23 to 45.
Okay.
Emphasis on that verse 42. Next one is actually going to go into the so-called New Testament, Acts 7. And you want to hear the testimony of Stephen. Acts 7, 1 through 19. And again, just seeing, hey, what is Genesis 15 talking about? What is it talking about? And again, all we're doing is reading through the scripts. You decide. All right, Acts 7. This is Stephen's speech as he's before the high priest, and this is right before they stoned him, my man. All right, and he's giving an account and giving a testimony. Acts 7, starting at verse 1, and it reads, I'm reading out of the ESV. And the high priest said, are these things so? Stephen said, brothers and fathers, hear me. The Most High of glory appeared to our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia before he lived in Haran, and said to him, go out from your land and from your kindred and go into the land that I will show you. Then he went out from the land of the Chaldeans and lived in Haran, and after his father died, the Most High removed him from there into this land in which you are now living. Yet he gave him no inheritance in it, not even a foot's length, but promised to give it to him as a possession and to his offspring after him, though he had no child. Verse 6, and the Most High spoke to this effect, that his offspring would be sojourners in a land belonging to others, who would enslave them and afflict them 400 years. But I will judge that nation that they serve, said the Most High, and after that they shall come out and worship me in this place. Sounds familiar to what Genesis 15 is saying, right? Verse 8, and he gave him the covenant of circumcision. And so Abraham became the father of Isaac and circumcised him on the 8th day. Isaac became the father of Jacob, blah, 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 blah. Let's skip down. Okay, well, let's go to verse 9. And the patriarchs, jealous of Joseph, sold him into Egypt, but the Most High was with him and rescued him out of all of his afflictions and gave him favor and wisdom before Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who made him ruler over Egypt and over all his household. Now there came a famine throughout all Egypt and Canaan and great affliction, and our fathers could find no food. But when Jacob heard that there was grain in Egypt, he sent out our fathers on their first visit. And on the second visit, Joseph made himself known to his brothers. Joseph's family became known to Pharaoh. And Joseph sent and summoned Jacob his father and all his kindred, 75 persons in all. Jacob went down into Egypt, and he died, he and our fathers, and they were carried back to Shechem and laid in the tomb that Abraham had bought for a sum of silver from the sons of Hamor and Shechem. Emphasis on verse 17. But as the time of the promise drew near, which the Most High had granted to Abraham, the people increased and multiplied in Egypt, until there arose over Egypt another king who did not know Joseph. He dealt shrewdly with our race, forced our fathers to expose their infants, and yada, yada, yada. Okay? Emphasis on verse 17. But as the time of the promise drew near, which the Most High had granted to Abraham. So we have all of this account of what took place in Canaan and Egypt. And then he says, but as the time of the promise drew near, which the Most High had granted to Abraham. It's right there. It's right there in front of us. It's honestly, if you ask me, there's really nothing to question. It's right there in the scripts. I'm not making it up. It's right there in the scripts of what it is. And like I said, this is not this is not well, maybe it could be a salvation or a kingdom issue because, like I said, with this, and I don't even know if I said it, but there are some people that have taken this script, right, thinking that it was the 400 years in America, and now 2019, 400 years is up, the Most High is coming, and this now whatever, boom, 2019 has come and gone, and we're still here. And a lot of our people are just like the other testimony I spoke about as far as, what happened with Y2K. They look at it and be like, well, wait a minute, what's up? This ain't real. I'm going back to Christianity.
Yeah,
I'm going back. Go ahead,
so
Al.
it's like because I was about to play devil's advocate, but I'm just going to throw out their perspective or an understanding that to pretty much justify what they think or what some people think that still holding on to 2019 marks 400 years. They're going to say that okay, it's 2025 now. 2019 game came and went. Uh, it was just talking about judgment was going to start the year 2029. You know what I'm saying? But still look at it within the text. You feel what I'm saying? And try to marry with the text. It doesn't match. And then like a lot of people who came to this understanding who they are, and then it was taught that 2019 hit, it's 400 years. We're gonna be out of here. And then once it turned 2020, you know what I'm saying? Like we still suffering the same conditions, still suffering probably worse conditions that we have even before. And then Jacob's troubles is heating up even more. Now they've become discouraged. Now they stop believing in the Most High. Now they went back into whatever doctrine or whatever dogma that came before it, where it's simply, yeah, I could see it being a salvation issue because the calculation details is fact. It because you pretty much basing your soul upon or basing your spirit upon a misunderstanding of calculation and misunderstanding of what the scripture is teaching.
Yeah, I mean, it's a gross miscalculation, and and I get it, but again, Danny, you want to speak on that, man? You got a lot there, brother.
No, I mean, I've seen a million calculations on this, and just in general, when you look at, as it says, the Septuagint, Samaritan Pentateuch, right? The regular text, King James Version, all of this. I'm not going to read it all, but basically it divides up 215 in Canaan, 215 in Egypt for the 430. I mean, you all can look at the chat and see what it says.
Yep. Yep. Exactly right. Exactly right. And that's what it. And that's, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's like even what Josh said. I mean, I get, and because I've heard of all of that too, as far as the judgments begin in 2019, things of that nature. But we have, again, this is why we have the text. You have the text to parse out these things, to go back and study. Does it line up with the text, right? I mean, I've heard that, I've heard all types of craziness, that the whole Amorites thing that's spoken about in Genesis 15, oh, that's just another word for America. Where did you get that from?
Made up.
My point exactly. You know what I mean? You can't just make stuff up. It's like the and my man Abadia, he had a good point about this. Um, when we speak the Lashawan Kodash, the set apart tongue, right? The ancient Paleo Hebrew, there was a word that would be used that the brothers had made up, Ayandabar, right? To say that was like, say, if you say Tawada, which is
Water.
great, which is grateful, right? Or Tawada Rabah, which is exceeding grateful. You say Ayandabar as if you're saying you're welcome, but that's not something we spoke of in
Hmm.
in our in ancient Hebrew. We wouldn't respond with "you're welcome" or anything like that. It would be say like "khan," like you know what I mean, or just accepting of it, or we just say yes shalom, or what's the other one, yeah, like barakatah, or shalom or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, be in peace, or halakabah shalom, or walk in peace, or something like that, or whatever. We wouldn't say you're welcome. So we can't. I mean, I thank Danny for the study that he gave a couple of weeks ago, because it sparked everything that we spoke about last week, and even now, that we can't bring the ancient of what the Most High intended and try to modernize it to fit, our current construct. You can't do that. Words, all of that, it doesn't mix. We can't do that. You see what I'm saying? So there is no word for you. Well, Ayanabar is a made up word. It's a made up word because that's not something that we would respond with. We did that because we're trying to make it fit this current construct. You cannot do that. You can't. So it's like taking this script and trying to make it fit this current construct. It doesn't work. It doesn't work, not in any way, shape, or form. We cannot do that. We read the Malachi, was it, I think it was 3 and 6, whatever. The Most High is not changed. These, and nothing has changed. So we can't take scripts and cherry pick and this and that, whatever, and take them and make them fit, our current situation. No, it says what it says, and it is what it is. And there are, witnesses to confirm these things. And this is what we're doing. We're reading through the witnesses to see what this is actually talking about. Because, like I said, there are people that have taken this thinking and assuming that it is America, and to Josh's point, taking certain things, saying that the judgment will start at 2019 because the 400 years is up. And it's now whatever, and again, 2019 has come and gone, and some people have actually fallen away. Like, real talk. They have fallen away because they're like, okay, see, nothing's happening. See, we've been talking about this and that all these years, and and still nothing's happened. See, it can't be real. It can't be real. So yeah, so it does become a kingdom issue. It honestly does when you really think about it, because people are not doing their due diligence. You can't just take what some man said or what people say. That you have to go back and do your own due diligence and your own studies and see for yourself. And all we're doing is parsing through the script. This is not me saying this. I'm just looking through the scripts. And that's what we have to do. That's what we have to do as Yashra. There's one more I think I wanted to look at. Jubilees 48, I think it is. Let me see. Jubilees 48, 1 through 8, I believe. And I can read through it quickly. I don't know if everyone's Jubilees has this heading, but the heading tells you what's up, actually. Jubilees, yeah, Jubilees 48, 1 through 8. Milo, hey, Milo, get out of there. Excuse me, y'all. Jubilees 48, 1 through 8. All right, and the heading on mine says, Moses returns from Midian to Egypt. Mastema seeks to slay him on the way, verses 1 through 3. It says the 10 plagues, verses 4 through 11. Yashraal goes forth out of Egypt. The destruction of the Egyptians on the Red Sea, da 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 da. Okay, so Jubilees 48, 1 through 8. And it reads, "And the 6th year of the 3rd week of the 49th Jubilee, you did depart and dwell 5 weeks and 1 year. And you did return into Egypt in the 2nd week, in the 2nd year, in the 50th Jubilee. And you yourself know what he spake unto you on 24:10, Mount Sinai, and what Prince Mastema desired to do with you when you were returning into Egypt. Verse 3, did he not with all his power seek to slay you and deliver the Egyptians out of your hand when he saw that you were sent to execute judgment and vengeance on the Egyptians? And I delivered you out of his hand, and you did perform the signs and wonders which you were sent to perform in Egypt against Pharaoh and against all his house and against his servants and his people." And of course, this is he's most speaking to Moses here. Verse 5, "And Yah executed a great vengeance on them for Yasharal's sake, and smote them through the plagues of blood and frogs, lice and dog flies, malignant boils, breaking forth in blains, their cattle by death and by hailstones. Thereby he destroyed everything that grew for them, and by locusts which devoured the residue which had been left by the hail, and by darkness, and of the firstborn of men and animals, and on all their idols, Yah took vengeance and burned them with fire." So again, this is another account, the confirmation of what was spoken about in Psalm 105, what Stephen's talking about. Verse 6, "And everything was sent through your hand, and you should declare these things before they were done. And you did speak with the king of Egypt before all his servants and before all his people." Verse 7, "And everything took place according to your words. 10 great and terrible judgments came on the land of Egypt, that you might execute vengeance on it for Yashraal." Verse 8, okay? "And Yah did everything for Yashraal's sake, and according to his covenant, which he had ordained with Abaraham, that he would take vengeance on them as they had brought them by force into Egypt." Okay? So, again, this is another confirmation that what was spoken about in Genesis 15 and in Jubilees, what did I say, 14? Yeah, in Jubilees 14, 13 to 16, was everything that took place between, again, the time that the Most High spoke this covenant to Abraham until Yashraal left Egypt. So this whole thing is concerning what took place within that time frame of Canaan and Egypt. It has nothing to do with our current situation. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. And I just pray. And again, I'm not speaking bad about anybody. I'm not speaking down on anyone. This, now, whatever. I just hoped that our people would be more diligent to just kind of just go in and just look at the scripts and see before saying, well, you know what, this ain't real, blah 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 blah. The 2019 came and gone, and we still here, and I thought judgment was supposed to come, and blah 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 blah. Based on what Most High told Abraham, see, it was supposed to be America and all these things. No, it is not. We just read through scripts that confirmed that what was being spoken about was concerning everything that happened in Egypt. And again, yes, they weren't afflicted 400 years, but we also look at the scripts to see, what was actually being spoken about. And again, it's not that Most High made a mistake. Most High didn't make no mistakes. Remember, these our scrolls have passed through the hands of our enemies, man. And they're trying to translate and transliterate and all of this other stuff, this and that, whatever. They're the ones making the mistakes. Dan, you got something?
No, I was just saying, I'm not sure how you can get a modern prophecy where it's speaking directly to Abraham about Egypt and about Canaan. I just don't. I can't
That's
wrap my head around
I
around
can't
that.
either. I've been trying to. I really have, but you honestly do. You have brews that honestly and still believe that this has everything to do with America and our current captivity. And
Well,
I
but to me, that's so narrow-minded because aren't we scattered to the four corners of the earth? So why would it be hinged on America? I
there
mean,
you
we're
go.
scattered to the four corners of the earth. So I mean, yeah, I mean that's how you end up in cults and all that kind of stuff. Is some man telling you something specific that then you're disappointed with because that's not what the text actually says at all.
Uh,
And I know
I
we've been here whatever in that amount of years because I remember when this whole thing hit and whatever it was a few years ago. I looked into it to see, but I was like, I can't. I don't. Yeah, I mean, it's there. That is a very specific prophecy to
specific
Abraham that was fulfilled in that time.
in that time. All praises, and that's the thing, and you hear it a lot. Everything just kind of stuck on America and hinged on America, this, that,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
But we're like you said, we're scattered. The Most High said He's scattering us to the four corners of the earth.
yeah. That's
Okay,
just arrogance for us to think it's based off of America.
right. We're scattered to the four corners of the earth. No matter where we go in on this earth, we are in captivity. No matter where we go. Okay? We are in captivity. And Babylon is not America. Babylon is the entire system. It's
Uh,
the entire construct. You cannot escape anything. You can't escape anything. Babylon is the construct. It is over the entire earth. Okay, we're not just captives. Again, people think slavery is over. No, slavery is not over. We're still in captivity, y'all. We're still in captivity. It may not be as it may not be as heinous here, but in other parts of the world, it actually is. There are a lot of our people still being whipped and all of these things. There's still an Arab slave trade going on. Trust me, this stuff is still happening. Okay, and it's happening all over the earth, not just here in America. It's everywhere. Babylon is the construct. Babylon is not America. Babylon is the entire system that is pagan. Point blank in the period. But we of Yasharal, the Most High, is telling us to come up out of that. You know what I mean? Be transformed by the renewing of your minds. Okay, you've been brought up in paganism. You did not know who your Abba was. You didn't know your heritage because he took it from us because of the idolization of other gods, from our people. So he took all of that. So you did not know any of that. You didn't know your heritage, your culture, none of that. Your Abba, you didn't know any of that. Okay, so now that he's awakened us and he's breathed into these dry bones, now we're getting back to that. So we have to renew our minds. We got to change our mindsets. Start scrubbing like my man Danny always says, the tapes playing in our heads of the things that we've been taught via Christianity and all of these other things, and really start going back to an ancient way of thinking according to the scripts the Most High allows us to get via the Ruach Kodash, the Holy Spirit. So this is where we are. So, I don't know if anyone had anything else. I just wanted to kind of share this because it's heartbreaking to see that people will, walked away and just kind of, just kind of gave up, because they just didn't go and do their due diligence and you know what I mean, and just read a little bit.
Listening to this, it makes so much sense because if we look at as far as the 400-year thing, then it would make y'all a liar. Like he didn't keep his promise. If you want to believe that the 400 years, thing started in 2019 or 20, whenever. And that's why so many people are, turning away because they believe he's a liar. But it's either you believe Yah or you don't. And you can, what you just pointed out, I mean, you can see it, that it was fulfilled, so, looking at it's like, wow, then that would mean, Yah's a liar if we believe the 400 years and he's not a liar. So,
Right.
yeah,
Exactly.
it's
I mean, and
interesting.
then you can, and then even beyond that, you can go into their history, right?
Right.
Their history tells you about all of these different captivities and the whole 9 yards. Okay, not just the transatlantic slave trade, but the Arab slave trade, which is still going on, mind you. Okay, and the Arab slave trade was before the transatlantic slave trade. And then you got all the stuff that happened in the Spanish Inquisition. So there's so many years of captivity. Is so far beyond that. You know what I mean? But like you said, Abba fulfilled his word. He fulfilled it. He fulfilled it, the word that he made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He fulfilled it. It's done. Right? Still
Yeah.
fulfilling words, fulfilling his words and his promises and this and that. It's just because someone doesn't do their due diligence, and I speak about this all the time, lack of accountability. Lack of accountability. You lack accountability, you're not going to look at yourself. You're going to try to scapegoat and point the finger at something else. And that's what's taking place. Yeah, Doc, I see you.
No, yeah. Since we came out of Egypt, to your point, man, we've been in bondage a million times for a million years. I mean, because even if you think about what Paul was doing, Yeshua knocked Paul off the horse, told him to go speak to our brothers scattered, and then you see where he went. He was in Rome, he was in Corinth, he was in Thessalonica. And our, because people, to your earlier point, get caught up on that afflicted word when the promise began when he spoke to Abraham, because we afflicted ain't necessarily the yoke that they put around our neck, but it's the absence of being away from Yah and from where Yah has us.
Con.
So we afflicted whether you in a good mood or not. You afflicted being in America because that's not your home.
Look, at the end of the day, to your point, right? At the end of the day, okay, we may not be going like us here, right? Gather here, and a lot of our people, we may not be going through what our ancestors have gone through, right? The whippings and the beatings and this and that, whatever, and the Jim Crows and the whole 9 yards, such and such and such, blah 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 blah, right? But we're still apart from Yah, and there's
Yeah,
still
yeah.
other aspects of it, right? Like think about it. When we were with the Most High, were we working a 9 to 5? You weren't working a nine to
No.
five. The most work you was doing was what? Tilling your land for your food and your crops and things and that or whatever, right? But everything else, the Most High was providing for our people, man. Even out there in the wilderness, He was providing everything. You right? So this is captivity, man. You out there working for somebody else, making somebody else's. You may be getting some dollars in your pocket and all 9 yards, but technically, you working for them. This is we just in this. It's just this slavery is just modernized. That's it. Okay. They make you think that you
Yeah.
own, and I don't want to get on a tangent, but they make you think that you own something, even you're buying a house or you buying a property, this and that. Whatever. You don't own none of that stuff, man. You don't. It's still theirs. We are in captivity here in America, across the pond, no matter where you are. We are in captivity. It is what it is. The entire construct is Babylon. And to Kim's point, the Most High fulfilled everything he said he was going to do with Abraham, fulfilled it. So now, okay, again, there's a lack of accountability because people don't want to go and do their due diligence to just search the scriptures. Just search the script. That's it. It's written. It's right there.
You
But
know,
no, you want to walk away and blame the Most High and say, "Oh, this ain't it. Or I can't get with that, and I'm not an Israelite no more," which is ludicrous to me if it's bloodline. I'm not an Israelite no more. I mean, it's just ludicrous. And like I said, I'm not putting anybody down. Honestly, for me, it saddens me. It really, really does. It saddens me because the same thing that we're doing right now, parsing through the scripts, just like the Bereans and Acts, is parsing through the scripts to make sure, these things are so, and confirming this, confirming that, and getting the witnesses. Everybody else can do the same thing. Yeah.
It's
Sis, you got
it's
something?
it's funny. I wasn't brought up in Christianity, so I have a tendency to look at things a little bit differently. Um, it strikes me as very strange for somebody who says that they have faith to look at something like 400 years and think, okay, the 400 years is over, so Yah must be wrong. Wouldn't you think that rather than Yah is wrong, maybe you as a human being miscalculated or did something wrong, rather than to point a finger at Yah, who you're supposed to be following, whether you're Christian or Hebrew or whatever, you're supposed to have that faith.
Mm.
So it kind of strikes me as funny that the first thing you jump to is, oh, I'm going to leave this because Yah's wrong. What about you?
Again, it just goes back to a lack of accountability. Um, I use that a lot because I've seen it so much where, um, you know, you could be wrong in every aspect, but instead of just acknowledging you're wrong, and just dealing with whatever consequences or whatever the case may be, you'd rather just point the finger and make everybody else the issue when you yourself
Yeah,
is the issue. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And
absolutely.
it just it boggles my mind, but it goes back, even to the word, because I bring that scripture up a lot in Leviticus 26, verse 41 here. It's part of that humility where the Most High even tells us to basically, I'm paraphrasing, basically to acknowledge the consequences of our iniquity, pretty much, to understand that we're in the position that we're in because our forefathers messed up. The world is jacked up because our forefathers messed up. The foolish nations are on top of us because our forefathers messed up. It has nothing to do with them. And that's why I always say I'm not giving them the onus. I'm not going to say, oh, they took this and they took that and they have this power over us. No. Okay. We were basically given into their hand because we wanted what the other nations had. And the Most High just basically said, okay, you want what they have so much? Have at it. Let's see how that works out for you. So accountability for us is, you know what? We're in this hole right now because our ancestors messed up, and the Most High promised. Well, the Most High said that these curses, if our forefathers messed up or whatever, these curses will be upon them and the generations to come, and this and that or whatever. So here we are. What do we do to try to get back on track? That's where we should be. Not, laying blame and this, that, whatever. For what? What is that going to do? Right? We should be, what do we do to obtain not just salvation, but the kingdom? Okay? For that means just being before the Most High. That means, studying to show ourselves approved, right? That means, just doing our due diligence, searching the scriptures to make sure that what's being said is correct, right? I'm not going to just sit there and take somebody's word for it. I'm going to go back and I'm going to study. I'm going to go back and see and pray and ask the Most High to by His Spirit to reveal to me. And honestly, if I am studying and there's something I don't get right now, or this I'm just not getting, pray, Abba, you know what? I'm not getting it right now. If when you're ready for me to receive it, you know what? Show it to me. Because there's also a scripture that says, not to basically study those hard things. I know it's in Sirach, but don't search out those things that are too hard for you. Because if Abba wants you to know something for whatever moment or whatever time or whatever situation that you're in, if he wants you to know it, he's going to show it to you. Because he doesn't want for any of us to perish. So if there's something he wants you to know, he's going to reveal it to you. We don't always have to, jump down the rabbit holes and search things that are too hard for us. And that's not me saying that. That's the scripture saying that.
Yeah, there's a verse that says it's the glory of kings to seek out a matter and the glory of Yah to conceal it.
Exactly right. So
Proverbs
again,
25.
exactly right. So there are things that are concealed, right? There are things that are concealed, and we can search them out. But don't break your brain now. Don't bust a blood vessel, because again, if the Most High doesn't want you to know it for right now, He don't want you to know it. There's also a script that says the secret things belong to the Most High, right? So, matter of fact, where's that script at? The one about Sirach. Um, yo, Ak, I know you know what that joint is, man. The secret things belong, not the secret things. The search those things that are not too hard for thee, something like that.
It's Sirach
Josh,
chapter, hold on, let me get my red book. It's Sirach chapter 3. Let go, Caleb.
Rock 3:21.
Come.
Con. Yeah. So Ecclesiasticus chapter 3, and this is just to my point of, you know what, we do our due diligence to, search the scriptures and wrestle with the text and things of that nature, but don't go beyond that scope, right? Go beyond that scope. I don't know how else to word it. Don't go beyond that scope. And the text tells you, Sirach 3:21. Don't seek things that are too hard for you, and don't search out things that are above your strength. Verse 22. Think about the things that have been commanded you, for you have no need of the things that are secret. Verse 23. Don't be overly busy in your superfluous works, for more things are showed to you than men can understand.
Hit
Okay?
23.
Huh?
Did you hit 20? Yeah, you hit 23. No
Yeah,
mind.
I hit that one. Yep. Okay, more things are showed to you than men can understand.
And then hit
The Most
24.
High is showing His people. Go ahead.
And then 24 too. For many are deceived by their own vain opinion,
There you
and
go.
an evil suspicion hath overthrown their judgment.
Con. Because one thing I've noticed is Hasatan is very subtle, and you can quickly what's the word I'm looking for? You can quickly become self-righteous, if you will. Heaping knowledge unto yourself and things. I've seen it. I've literally seen it in action. I've seen it. Okay? You can become very self-righteous, heaping knowledge unto yourself, forgetting that, these things are revealed to us by the Most High, right? And we don't want to be there. We don't want to be there. Again, the scriptures are there to help us to obtain, to get back to our heritage, to please the Most High, to live by every word that proceeds out of His mouth. Man, we don't ever want to get to a place where we got it all figured out. This and that, whatever. No. Ak, you got something?
No, just in agreement with what you're saying, man. That's pride. It says, don't it say pride come first, or come before you fall? That's pride, the self-righteousness, the I know it, and I can't be wrong,
Right.
In Sirach, Salaki, I didn't mean to cut you off. In Sirach chapter 10, I just walked away from the book, but Sirach chapter 10 tells us that pride is the beginning of sin.
Mm.
You know,
Right.
so I got.
Yep. Verse 12. It is the beginning of pride when a man departs from Yah. His heart has departed from Him who made him. Okay. For the beginning of pride is sin. He who keeps it will pour out abomination. For this cause Yah brought upon them strange calamities and utterly overthrew them. And then in verse 18, pride has not been created for men, nor wrathful anger for the offspring of women. So pride is huge, and it comes very subtle, man. That's why I always say, man. You know, y'all my witness, my wife. That's why I always say, look, if any time I'm in error, that's why we leave this, you know, as an open discussion. If there is error, if there is something to be corrected, please bring it. Because me personally, I always say I don't want to be in error because I don't want to teach anyone else error. You know what I mean? I don't want to be in error because I don't want to be able to teach or show someone else error. Right? So that's what we should be. So that's why I'm always careful. And you know, me, I don't mind. I'll call up. Danny. I'll call up Yashiya. I'll speak to C Love and Trav, or some other brothers we know. I'll call them up. Just to get make sure that I'm on the up and up, or I'm on the straight and narrow. And if I'm not, I don't mind being corrected. I'm not that cat. I never liked debating and going back and forth, and I never liked that anyway. It's not fruitful at all. I just want to, there's a whole lot of people that just want to be right. Me, I want to be right before the Most High, point blank in the period. You know what I mean? So if there's any place where I'm in error, all I ask, if there's correction to be had, just bring it forth through the scripts. Just bring the witnesses. I always say every point should have 2-3 witnesses according to the scripts. And of course, with Hebraic thought, that's what we on. Hebraic thought. So, but I didn't mean to get off on a tangent, y'all. It's all good. It's all love. But anybody got any questions, comments, concerns? As far as what we spoke about today with the Genesis 15. Anybody still on the fence about it, this, that, or whatever? I mean, if you are, it's okay. It's fine. Like I said, I ain't here to convert anybody. That's not my thing. I'm just here to, for us to sit and discuss the scripts and be edified. But anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Alrighty then. No questions, comments, concerns. All right, so we done for the day. I'm going to end off in prayer. Marsha, you want to lead us in prayer? Yes, you want to come over here and say it with your chest. You know what I mean? All praises, huh?
Okay. Abba, we just thank you for just you and for bringing us together to just fellowship and just just go into the scripts, and thank you for revealing your things to us, the truth to us, our culture, and who you are to us and who we are to you. Yeah, I pray that we just don't take it for granted. I pray that you would continue to strengthen us and help us to endure to the end, and to remain faithful and humble servants, seeking you and serving you in truth and spirit. I pray that we will be sensitive to your rawak and obedient to it, yeah. And we thank you for that. We thank you for going before us in anything and everything we do, and for leading and guiding and directing our paths. And we just love you so much. And we thank you for just opening things up to us and revealing yourself to us. We don't take that for granted. I pray we don't take that for granted ever. Yeah. In your most holy name we pray, and in your son Yahweh Shai HaMashiach's name we pray. Aman Halawayah. All praises.
All praises.
Come on.
That's what about for that. So family, we got Sunday study tomorrow. Rock Danny and the crew. Then later on today at 3 p.m. Eastern, Chris and Trav got their study as well. They were off last week, but they got their study. Y'all on today, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So they just put their link in there. So again, as I always say, there's plenty for us to eat. There's plenty for us to eat. So all praises, family. Enjoy y'all day. Walk with the Most High. Love y'all, family. And shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Hey.